Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, February 26th, 2026. Aha. Now we're on to something. Maybe that explains absolutely nothing. All right. Well, we are in for 2 hours of explaining absolutely nothing. That's the good news. We've got it all for you, from the stuff that happened yesterday to the other stuff that happened yesterday to some new takes about what happened yesterday. It's we're kind of stuck in the news cycle at the moment. Everyone, the State of the Union sort of disrupts everything. That's what makes it such a great opportunity to pivot away from terrible things and to good things for a president who knows how to do that. Or, if you prefer, pivot from terrible things to more terrible things with more terrible rhetoric. And I guess that's kind of where we're stuck. Not that Congress cared much. They're leaving. They're on their way out of town with no votes, I don't think, scheduled for today in the House, even though we are in, day... well, I'll look it up. I wrote about it just this morning. So what are we in? Day 14, 15, 20, 89 of the partial government shutdown that is encompassed by just the DHS. Day 13, all right. So tomorrow represents day 14, 2 weeks since they let funding lapse at DHS. Not that it matters, because the Too Big Beautiful Bidet bill has funded most of the operation. And everything since then, they spent a few days in the administration trying to come up with pressure points to make people sad that DHS wasn't working. And they couldn't do it, because the parts that they like are the tough, hard-nosed, crackdown, national security type things, and they don't want to close those. And the others are the faces of DHS, either that A, really just don't belong under DHS, or that people are annoyed with on a daily basis anyway. They tried to close down TSA, or at least part of it, by making things more inconvenient, and immediately found out, no, we don't like inconvenience. They reversed that decision, probably as soon as someone Trump knows, or someone who has Trump's telephone number was inconvenienced at an airport. And so we float along, no sense of urgency whatsoever in looking for funding for DHS. And I guess, again, it's mostly because they already stole the funding in the Big Beautiful Bidet bill. There's talk this morning, one of the few pieces of fallout that I've actually turned around and said, all right, I'll read that, from the State of the Union, is that I didn't know because I didn't watch, and it took the news media about, about 18 hours to sort this one out and then write up, oh, by the way, they're saying that Trump's rhetoric at the State of the Union has increased the pressure on Mike Johnson to deliver another reconciliation bill, which I guess is a sort of way of looking at things, saying there's some sane washing going on, because the articles then go on to point out Trump did not use the word reconciliation at any point and not call for another reconciliation bill. But it's understood to be that because he called for the passage of a wide-ranging, very Trumpy agenda, which the Republicans have not got anywhere near the votes that they need to get through either house, really. And so obviously something, and they put the sane washing machine to work on it and came out with, they must be talking about bringing another reconciliation bill, because otherwise it's ridiculous to even float these ideas, because there's just no way in hell they're going to get around to it. So, that's another interesting fallout of the sane washing factor in all this. And with a little less sane, I guess, on it, it'll take a little bit of the sane shine off of things. We'll probably be reviewing some other takes, hot takes, or maybe even lukewarm takes on the State of the Union, because Greg Dworkin is here and he's brought margarine. So we're all having breakfast here. We should have toast and eat. Do they still make Imperial margarine? They may not.
I don't know.
Good morning, Greg.
It's not butter, whatever it is.
Right. That was it. The reason it's not on your grocery store shelves is widespread disbelief.
Yeah, well, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature.
There was a whole, there was a full-blown margarine advertising industry that really came up with some good ones. And then we kind of decided, I don't know, there's still some margarine out there, although now they disguise it better, or they blend butter in there, or they tell you, you won't believe that we don't know that this isn't butter, or whatever. That was
big margarine doesn't want you to know what they're doing. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I guess that must be it. Now we have all sorts of artisanal butters. No artisanal margarine, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, as far as we could tell. I can't believe it's not an artisanal well.
That's what we should be doing.
Let's talk about State of the Union a little bit.
All right. How is the Union? What do you think?
The Union isn't in good shape. The State of the Union sucked, and people think Donald Trump sucks. So, you have to start from there. He's attacking
various states in the Union. I understand that, too.
Right. I wrote on Twitter this morning, one of the annoying things about reading some analysis by the mainstream press of the State of the Union is the assumption is that you judge these things by whether Republican operatives thought it was a good idea, not a good idea, good speech, not a good speech. I mean, that's their sources. That's what they're plugged into, accurately reflecting what they've been told, and in no way, shape, or form actually mirroring reality. So, for example, Dan Pfeiffer, a lot of the takes on Trump's State of the Union look like this one from Politico. Trump did what Republicans asked. That seems like insanely credulous bullshit to me.
Trump did what
There's
Republicans
nothing in the polling data that
asked.
suggests this speech was good for the GOP, and here's why. He gives an example of what Politico said.
Okay.
Here's the worry for jubilant Republicans waking up after the longest State of the Union in history. What if his best isn't enough? The president did almost everything Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and top White House strategist asked of him. Therefore, that made it a good speech? He stayed on script. Oh, my God. He didn't. Pfeiffer notes this, and he says, the thrust of the speech is the economy's great, prices are down, nobody believes it. 6 in 10 people think things are worse now than before Trump became president. 3/4 don't like the economy, and majorities think Trump's made the economy worse, so he sounded delusional. He once again defended and touted the tariffs. Voters hate the tariffs. They symbolize how Trump broke his promise to lower prices and then raised them. He used his biggest speech to propose raising taxes on every American. It's horrible politics.
Oh, I like that.
And if Trump's advisors and GOP strategists really thought this speech was good for them, they're all effing idiots.
Oh. Well, I think we thought that beforehand. But this is good proof. I like having, this is some data points for the assumption.
I got a video for you.
Oh, you do? All right.
Yeah, it's all the way at the bottom.
I'm going to prepare for that video
Well, prepare because it's the Lion Senator from Wisconsin.
My gosh.
Ron Johnson.
Ew, gross.
Liar / Wisconsin.
All right.
Wisconsin.
All right.
You put it there.
Where do you put
Jake
it?
Jake Tapper's interviewing him.
Oh.
And there was a part where...
as I
noted yesterday, Tom Nichols called this the Price is Right State of the Union. U.S. hockey team, come on down.
Oh, I see, yeah.
A victim of a horrible, vicious immigrant who was actually murdered by an American.
Yeah, come on down.
Come on down. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Tapper's interviewing Ron Johnson about how it went.
All right. Did he get a chance to come on down?
They wouldn't stand for that. They wouldn't stand as we were expressing sympathy and support for the mother of the Ukrainian young woman who was brutally murdered on a train by an illegal immigrant.
Brutally murdered.
So again, I thought it was pretty stark difference. You had to be in the chamber to really experience that. I don't think
none of us were,
really
though.
did justice in terms of
You're right.
what sourpusses Democrats were at the State of the Union last night.
I don't think that the woman killed in North Carolina was killed by an immigrant. It's a horrible story, but I don't think that's an example of the illegal immigration criminal issue.
Well, Jake, there are so many others. Lake and Riley.
I'm not apologizing. I won't say I was wrong.
Many others that
I won't admit I was lying.
Never focused on. They just focus on the two martyrs that were encouraged to put themselves into harm's way, knowing that they were probably going to get hurt. They got hurt. Now they're exploiting those martyrs. So the news media covers those. They don't cover all the victims of illegal immigrants.
Well, we certainly have covered Lake and Riley and others. I don't think that either Renee Good or Alex Preddy thought that they were taking their, risking their lives when they were doing what they were doing. Republicans said,
that's all there is. But well, good, because that's it.
I mean, you can't go by. Well, Republicans thought that.
Yeah. Well.
No. Because this is an example of, obviously it was a successful speech because Ron Johnson thought it was successful. No.
Well, that won't work. And I mean, I guess Tapper's doing what you can do. Certainly there are things I wish she had said, Tim, but it's not going to make a dent.
I mean, the proper approach is, look, you lie, so you're not going on.
Yes, that would be better.
But they won't do that.
Or at least saying, look, I don't think the young woman you're talking about who was murdered, was a young woman? I don't even know. The woman you were talking about who was murdered was certainly a horrible story, but I don't think it was an immigrant who did it. And, and I know you're going to say Lake and Riley, or I just hear you saying Lake and Riley, but I mean, the premise of your whole shtick turns out to be wrong, and you're like, well, I'll just go to another one, and
yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to highlight that.
Right. So just do another thing, and don't come on my show. But
so let's talk about some other reactions here. Brian Stelter notes comparing Trump's 2026 State of the Union to the 2025 speech, which was not technically State of the Union,
right,
but similar in terms of how it looks and comes across the American public.
Also boring.
Fox News ratings were down 15%.
Among
total viewers, and down 24% in the key 25 to 54-year-old demo, because they're the ones that spend money.
Yes, okay, I guess that also make them key. By the way, they love non-State of the Union addresses to a joint session. That's my takeaway, is the young kids prefer addressing a joint session.
Right. So CNN and MS Now's ratings are both up by double digits year over year. That's all well and good. You'll see that Fox News doubled what CNN and MS Now is doing, but to put it into context, I think about 2% of the country watches cable news at all.
Oh. Yeah, I don't blame you.
So,
well, I mean, I blame those who do, really.
Yeah. So there's all of that. This is Susan Glasser writing in the New Yorker. Donald Trump's State of the Union was long and wrong.
Nice. I like that. It rhymes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's always better.
Yeah, wrong but strong. You've heard that. This is wrong and long.
All right.
So Trump's all about superlatives. Everything he does has to be the biggest, the strongest, the mostest. He made history. But if Tuesday's speech proved anything, it's hard to explain how you're going to get America out of a mess you don't believe exists.
Oh, yeah, for him, right.
I mean, if you don't want to touch it, it's not going to work. So, again, there's a difference between, I talked to a bunch of Republican operatives in Washington, D.C., and they all thought the speech was great because it hit the points they wanted the president to say. Therefore, it was a success. Mm-hmm. Compare that with Navigator Research State of the Union Special Report, Phoenix, Arizona dial groups.
All right. Right, sure.
Overall reactions. Trump centered his speech on stories of individual Americans, highlighted what he characterized as major accomplishments. He avoided his most unpopular issues, such as every issue.
I avoid talking about every issue.
In the Epstein files, for example. We saw the dial spike when Trump shared heroic stories and discussed plans for improving economic security, and dipped when Trump touted the golden age of America and his nonstop winning, indicating a disconnect between the president and Americans on the economic state of our union.
I see.
How well did Trump represent the interests of people like you in tonight's speech? Well, 35%, not well, 65%. That's really the point. Same numbers, 32-68 for spent evening focused on right or wrong things. Okay, and the highlights, of course, were the stories of people. But despite small improvements, Trump remains in negative territory in a range of issues addressed in the speech. Post-speech, how confident are you in Donald Trump's ability to handle each of the following issues? Remember, Republicans watch. This is like a very Republican audience, as David Chalian pointed out yesterday. Mm-hmm. Post-speech, confident 44, not confident 53 on taxes. On health care, 41.59. Social Security, Medicare, 35.56. Foreign conflicts, 35.65. Corruption in government, 35.65. Tariffs and trade, 35.65. Free and fair elections, 32.65. Most people are not confident with where he's going with this. Mm-hmm. And where he fell flat, his meandering through the speech, several long periods of little dial movement, Trump treated the State of the Union like an award show, said one participant, which is all true. Now, here's an interesting
Nobody got up
approach.
to slap the host, though.
Yeah. This is overall not the State of the Union. There's a digital magazine, you might call it, blog if you want, called The Argument.
Right, our favorite. No, it isn't. Yeah.
Lakshaya Jain writes for it. He says, the Trump voters telling pollsters they never voted for him. It's interesting because everybody loves a winner. So usually what happens when you have a popular president is everybody claims they voted for the winner.
All right.
But in this case, what's happening is Trump is unpopular, and 6% of his voters are lying and said, I never voted for him. When I say this isn't what I voted for, I mean this is not what I voted for.
Yeah.
You mean you didn't vote for Trump? Yeah, I didn't vote for Trump. That's what I mean. It's a curious polling phenomenon where a non-trivial share of respondents falsely claim to have voted for the winner. Whether they're lying, misremembering, rewriting history, winner recall is common enough many reputable pollsters have observed it in past elections and written it up. In our national polling of registered voters, though, we're finding something different. A non-trivial chunk of people who are mad at Trump seem suddenly to have amnesia and no longer admit to having voted for him in 2024. I love that. Inject it into my veins. Voters abandoning the winning candidate is a pretty big reversal of a well-established phenomenon, but we now have enough data to suggest it's both real and the direct result of Trump's unpopularity. So how do we even know who people voted for in the first place? Because we collect data from every respondent in a Verisight panel about who they voted for. For each new recruit, it asked for a vote choice, and then we go back and we check. Not individually, but, percentage-wise. A respondent's 2024 vote is recorded as part of their profile. As Nate Cohn of the New York Times explained, this kind of logging of past vote is more reliable and less noisy than asking somebody who they voted for months or years down the line. But we separately asked respondents who they voted for so we can see how people's responses and memories drift compared to what they said at the time. And here's what we're finding. 6% of Trump voters, as determined by the recorded vote data we have, which we will treat as truth, don't even admit to voting for him in the last election.
I won't.
Right? But how do people say they voted, and how does it compare to how they actually voted? Trump 2024 voters say they voted 2.7%. 3% of Trump voters say they voted for Harris. And 3% say they didn't vote for either.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I didn't vote.
Oh, well, I guess that's actually probably pretty easy to believe, but yeah. But they're lying, so that's funny.
Well, look at it the other way. Of Harris voters in 2024,
all right.
87% say they voted for Harris, 1% say they voted for Trump,
really,
and 2.3% say they didn't vote.
Is there a butterfly ballot on this thing? How do they?
Yeah, you got that. Whereas if you look at all registered voters, 44% say they voted for Harris, 44% say they voted for Trump, and 12% say they didn't vote. So, the evidence suggests that unhappiness with Trump's performance is the reason voters don't admit to having voted for him. And that's fine. And if they won't vote for him again, that's even more important. But
yes,
if that's part of the picture,
decides he's running again because dictator or whatever. Sure. Look, wow, that's an odd thing. I guess it just proves the point that you can never that polling is always going to reveal that some portion of the respondent pool doesn't make any sense, or doesn't have their head screwed on right, or just people are weird. That is so odd. It's just that it's noise. It's a garbage number just in terms of like the 1% of Democrats.
But turn around and say, I wasn't sure who I was going to vote for, Republicans or Democrats, but I saw the State of the Union and Democrats refused to stand up for somebody, and that's going to change everything. Yeah, really. You can't even remember who you voted for.
Right, or at least not accurately. You're not willing to say so. So, you're telling me your motivation for vote, I suspect you might be lying about that. And this is very interesting. It's amazing what polling will turn up if you ask enough people. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. I don't know. Somehow I'm floored by that idea, even though that wasn't supposed to be the main point. But certainly,
it's a fascinating look.
But so, the number is too large to be just noise on the Trump side. Yes. All right. Where were we?
Where were we? We were in Texas.
What am I doing?
You probably didn't know that, but we were in Texas.
How was it?
It was great.
Okay.
Compared to here.
All right.
So I have some polling data, that is to say exit poll data, from the 2024 presidential election.
I heard that was rigged.
Which breaks down Texas voter demographics. And I think it's important to keep this in mind.
This must be the large picture of Texas that we're talking about.
That's where it is. Yes.
All right. Excellent.
I threw that in there. I just pulled that off the internet because I wanted to catch your attention.
Got it.
Texas! So, of those who voted for the 2024 presidential election, not the primary, but the real thing.
Okay. Yeah.
All right? Harris, Trump. Trump won by 13 points, something like that.
All right.
Race, ethnicity breakdown. 55% of the 2024 electorate was white. 11% was black.
All right.
26% was Latino, more than twice as many Latinos as black.
All right.
And,
Texas,
and 4% Asian.
I see. Okay. That's just a thing.
So
there it is.
If you're looking at the Democratic primary and trying to figure out, on the one hand, who's voting in the primary, that's one thing. And how that person would do in the general electorate, that's another thing.
I see. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Another breakdown here by party, overall for a general election, whereas in the primary, most of them are going to be Democrats, whatever your number. Pick a number, 90, 95%, 85%, whatever you want. Most of the people voting in a primary for Democrats are going to be Democrats.
Yes,
but
except
for the general election, Democrats make up 26% of total vote in Texas. Republicans 38, and Independents 36. So if you want to win in Texas as a Democrat, basically you have to attract independents is the point I'm making.
Yes.
You can get every one of your 26% to turn out, you're still going to lose big if you can't convince anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's why persuasion is a thing. So now we
Texas,
have this primary going on.
Yes.
And you're a pollster. And you're trying to figure out who's ahead, Tallarico or Crockett. Democrats like both. They have different styles, but, they're both very viable candidates. Their home bases are turning out, and you're trying to figure out, really who's ahead. So
pollsters, very impatient people.
Adam Carlson put together this really, really useful chart here.
Okay.
Now keep in mind that early voting ends on Friday.
Everyone, please keep that in mind.
Somewhere near 50% of the vote comes in early, usually, but maybe not this year because turnout is so high and nobody knows.
Turnout is so high and nobody knows. What?
Nobody knows who's going to turn out on Election Day.
Okay. All right.
We know that early vote is high, but does that mean Election Day is high? Because usually nobody votes in a Texas primary. Like 5% of the public shows up.
Okay, I could see that. Especially if you're only talking about 21% or so registered as Republicans who are Democrats who regularly show up as Democrats. And they don't know what to do.
Half the electorate doesn't regularly show up.
Yeah.
So we just have no idea. So here's the bullish case for James Tallarico.
All right.
Internal polling has him with all the momentum.
He's
gone from -17 to +4 in 10 weeks. In fact, there's a new poll out this morning, PPP poll, the Texas Senator Democratic primary for pro-Tallarico Lone Star Rising PAC. So it's a pro-Democratic poll, and PPP is a pro-Democratic pollster. Tallarico 48, Crockett 42, and that contrasts with the University of Texas poll that everybody's deriding from yesterday, which had Crockett with a big lead. The problem with that poll is they only polled 300 people in all of Texas, and they did it over like 2 weeks, so they missed any kind of momentum for Tallarico from the Colbert stuff. This PPP poll is the only poll I've seen which is post-Colbert, which is why I think it's interesting, even though it's an internal.
Yeah, okay, that's of interest.
But in any case, the bull case for Tallarico is internal polling has him with all the momentum, as I just showed you.
Yeah.
Early voting turnout appears to be very high in the white suburbs, including Dallas-Fort Worth, which is more Crockett's area, but we're talking about the white suburbs.
All right.
Black turnout seems relatively low outside of Dallas-Fort Worth. Again, that's her base. Including Houston, Beaumont, and East Texas, Tallarico's massively outraising and outspending Crockett, and black candidates tend to do better in early voting than on election day, so Crockett needs to bank a big lead now.
Okay.
That's the case for Tallarico.
All right.
The case for Crockett. Crockett has statistically significant leads in 3 of the 5 neutral publicly released polls conducted since Colin Allred dropped out. Early voting turnout is very high in her congressional district, especially in heavily black areas. Remember, black voters only make up 11% of the total general population mix in Texas, but much higher in the Democratic primary. I don't know the exact numbers in the Democratic primary. I should look that up. Early voting turnout is very high in her congressional district. Maybe we're already living in the Democratic Tea Party era and don't realize it. We're all overthinking this whole thing. Crockett's still hanging tough despite getting massively outspent, and Tallarico's heavily reliant on high election day turnout among Latinos and small city whites.
Okay.
So that's why it might lean Crockett. And
Small
then his best column is the bullish case where no one knows jack shit.
All right. Sure.
And I think this is really
I have to be bullish about that.
This is all true, right?
Okay.
About 25% of the early voting electorate has voted in recent general elections, but not any recent primary. Nobody has any idea who they support. And they're not included in any poll because pollsters look at them and say, you're not what we call a likely voter. You don't vote.
Okay. Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Early voting turnout doesn't tell a clear, consistent story, and turnout's on pace to exceed the contested 2020 Democratic presidential primary, which makes this electorate basically impossible to model, and we'll talk about why after the break.
Okay. Definitely, you got to like that heading. Everyone loves that. He had to work hard to make that fit in the column space he gave himself on this chart. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, $1 crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I believe, maybe we have to start with this little piece of housekeeping that I shared with Greg during the break. Our good friend and loyal listener, who you'll find on Blue Sky as Lamb's End Beds at Blue Sky, makes the great comment, very good point here. We were discussing this earlier. Whatever happened to margarine? Where'd it go? Do they even make it anymore? How come there's no artisanal margarine as there is artisanal butter? And the fact is, it's there, staring me in the face, and I've been ignoring it, and I probably will continue ignoring it. I don't want it, but there's been a gigantic rebrand, and it's absolutely right. I guess margarine, putting things out under the old brands and calling it margarine, is like, I don't eat that. That's for my grandpa, right? We don't have that. I liked artisanal butter, but we're trying to change things. And now to get people back in it, the 18 to 25-year-olds are voting in droves for vegan butter or plant-based butter. And then you can even buy cultured plant-based butter. That's just margarine rebranded. And so I guess I now have my work cut out for me. I'm going to have to launch the brand. I can't believe this marketing rebrand worked, and see how many people buy that. But that's exactly what they did. And what an eye for the situation on that one. So thanks very much for pointing that one out. I think they fooled me on that one. And it's not nice to fool
the
me.
Radio talk show host.
I mean, just me. Yeah, right. Anyway, it's a lot of fooling people going on in the margarine business. I wonder about that. Might have been Trump's first choice of careers, but it just didn't work out. Okay, now back to other stuff like numbers and things that people like to know about.
Well, just for the sake of argument.
All right.
Okay.
It isn't, but go ahead.
Just because we like an argument. And who doesn't
we
like
don't.
a good argument?
Me.
Let's say the electorate is 55% white, 11% black, 26% Latino.
Yeah.
And 4% Asian.
All right. I mean.
And you're doing a poll.
I'm supposed to argue with this.
And
all right.
you get, 60% white and 8% black and 35%, whatever, something that doesn't match your conception of what the electorate should look like.
Yes.
So what
based
you do is
you
adjust the numbers,
mm-hmm.
and you model the electorate based on this is what the likely electorate looks like.
Yes.
And if I had too many white voters, I'm going to dial it down a little bit, and I'll assign the black voting data that I got a little bit more salience and up the numbers a little bit, and I'll come out with a poll and we'll see how we do.
Yeah.
But what if
that's
half the turnout was unexpected?
Okay. Oh, yes. All right.
And of those half the turnout that was unexpected, whites aren't as prominent.
Okay.
And how do I adjust the numbers now?
Yeah.
Because the half of the electorate that's showing up is much younger and much more Latino.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it poses a problem.
I have an idea who they're voting for because I polled them, but I'm not really sure how to assign, because if I go by what I polled, man, there's way too many Latinos in this mix here.
Yeah.
I got to adjust it to, it should be more white, right? Everybody knows that. Except maybe you don't. And so that's why the larger the turnout, the harder it is to model.
Okay.
And that being the case, where he's seeing huge turnout, so like all these polls, he may be wrong.
Yes. Well, that's always true, and this is the why of why they're wrong.
And then, of course, some of these polls, most of them, that just about all of them, except for the one I just told you about, were done prior to the Stephen Colbert essential make Tallarico the center of the conversation discussion. Because of CBS banning a Tallarico interview from being seen on the air.
Yeah. They don't want you to see this candidate. Uh-oh.
So everybody's going to watch 15 times more than they would have if you were just on
They
the
apparently
show.
did.
So that being the case,
yes.
Nobody really knows what's going on, and that's why the bullish case for I don't really know jack shit about who's going to win.
Yes.
Is really powerful.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But look, I mean, if I have to bet on, which one of these two is going to win, and one option is I don't have any idea. Oh,
that's a good bet.
That's the one I'm in.
Because even after this other guy cleaned up 70-30, I still didn't have any idea, and what I told you was accurate.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm always in that case. That's my category.
The election hasn't happened yet, so I don't know who's going to win.
Well, it's good that would be included to remind you that, people don't. The experts don't know, and they don't know, and that's why they're constantly adjusting to try. They're asking you, and so you do know. You're voters.
The numbers,
yes,
as they exist, suggest Crockett has a slight edge, the polling. And my gut says Tallarico has a slight edge for various and sundry reasons, including the Colbert thing and the new voters who are showing up.
Okay.
And so we don't know. We'll have to see.
Yes.
But I do know this. This is from Politico. Republicans are freaking out over Texas Senate race. That's their headline.
Good.
And that's because Ken Paxton is beating Cornyn, and so they're freaking out about it. They're freaking out because, again, go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. Modern reporters think that the world revolves around what Republican operatives think. And if you ask Republican operatives in D.C., they think John Cornyn is Mr. Republican.
Right. That
He's
will make him
incumbent,
freak out.
He's conservative. He's everything Ronald Reagan stood for. Is that what the Republican Party is these days? Well, I pretend not to know that it's any different because my job depends upon my pretending not to know that it's any different. So what about the fact that Paxton is MAGA, a crook, a liar, and therefore fits everything about the modern Republican Party that is
and
right
therefore
now,
trending.
and therefore is going to win this primary. Well, I don't want to think that.
I don't either.
If you confront me with the fact that Cornyn's not going to win, you get a headline: Republicans are freaking out over Texas Senate race.
Yeah.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is a man to beat ahead of Tuesday's primary and could put Senate Republicans' majority at risk. It's clear Paxton's going to win the primary, to me.
It's
clear he also has an advantage in the general, no matter who he runs against, although it'll be a much more competitive race if it's Paxton as opposed to Cornyn, because the general electorate is different than a primary electorate.
Yep. Well, this will be, we'll know this sometime around, I don't think they're going to take forever to count all the votes. So Tuesday, Wednesday, that's interesting. You should keep that in mind as if we ever get back to talking about a legislative agenda or anything else moving through the Senate, John Cornyn could possibly be a lame duck for all of it starting on Wednesday. Let's say. That's interesting. And sometimes people who can clearly see the exit start voting in funny ways. I don't know what the motivation would be for him to do that.
Here's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Democrats have reason for optimism. They know they're the underdog. Even if, let's say, James Tallarico wins and Crockett endorses, or vice versa, and the entire Democratic Party, coalesces behind a certain individual, and then does a good job of persuading independents, because that's the only way you can win in Texas if you're a Democrat. So let's say they do that.
Yeah,
they have an optimistic chance, but Paxton is still the favorite because there's just so many more Republican voters than Democrats.
Yes. However, I don't know if he can win on Election Day if he steals all the pens, as he has frequently wanted to do. It's my favorite video of him.
This is true. However,
the
way that Republican operatives think about Texas is different than election analysts.
All right.
Election analysts say, I wonder if Tallarico or Crockett has a chance to knock off Paxton, who's not all that popular in Texas because everybody knows he's a crook.
Yeah, it's lousy.
That's the way election analysts look at it. Political operatives look like, oh my God, did you see what happens in Texas? It doesn't matter whether
it doesn't.
It's Crockett or Tallarico. Paxton is going to win. But do you have any idea how much money we're going to have to spend there to support him in order to get that win?
Oh.
Texas is huge. If all our money goes to Texas to eke out a win over, for the sake of argument, Tallarico, I don't have that money to spend in North Carolina or Georgia or Michigan or Maine.
We think, unless, of course, it's stolen from Fort Knox or Russia or some dumb thing like that.
But us. Because this election, all of a sudden, was a lock, and now it's going to cost us money, and that spoils our plans everywhere. That's the way Republican operatives think about this.
Well, that's worth noting, for sure. Election, pollsters don't, they do think about this, but that's not their main mode of analysis. That's true. That's good. I wonder who costs Texas or costs Republicans more money to defeat. I hadn't been really considering that. I don't know how there's any way to know.
Right.
There's no way to know.
So this is funny. So again, it's Politico. Politico depends upon Republican sources.
Yeah, but that's a good idea.
Paxton attended the President's State of the Union address Tuesday night as a guest of Representative Troy Nehls. Is that how he pronounces his name? Republican
I don't
Texas.
know. Nehls.
I don't know. Who called warnings of an expensive general election a scare tactic. What you're doing is you're telling Texas you can't elect Ken Paxton, not because you do a better job than me, but it'll cost too much. That's ridiculous.
He's got a point there, but look, people make their decisions based on weird things.
Meanwhile, where is Ken Paxton spending the money right now?
I don't know.
Not on
hookers
against John Cornyn.
Not that? All right.
No. There's a third Republican running.
Oh.
Hunt, that guy that never shows up in Congress for votes.
Okay. I mean,
Wesley
I forgot.
Hunt?
Sure. No. But someone in Texas must.
Paxton is spending money trying to attack Wesley Hunt. I mean, as an example of what Republican operatives worry about.
All right.
This is costing us money. This is nobody here who doesn't even show up in Congress for vote, but he's running in a Republican primary, and he may take some of our votes, and we don't want a runoff, and so we got to spend a ton of money here, and that's just wrecking our plans. I hate people who wreck our plans.
Yeah, that's interesting. So he's got to waste all his money fighting Hunt so that he can win the primary, and the National Party can waste all its money trying to get him across the finish line.
Exactly. So that's what's
this
going
is
on
terrific.
in Texas. So that's why, Tallarico doesn't have to win to help Democrats. He just has to run a reasonably close race. Same with Crockett.
Though a win would be nice.
A win would be nice.
I would rather have that.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm not favoring Tallarico over Crockett, and you just have to pick somebody for example's sake. And as I said, my gut says Tallarico probably has the edge based on the big mo, as George H.W. Bush used to say.
Well, we're going to go with Crockerino until it's done.
Yeah, Crockerino, right?
Why not?
Right.
Okay. Man, well, look, I can't wait for them to start well, they already are wasting money. I can't wait for them to waste more money.
Works a lot better than Tallet does.
Right. Tallet sounds like it might be true. Yeah. Crockerino is almost certainly not a real
sounds like
candidate.
an internet startup who's doing a Tallet.
Right. Crockerino is my artisanal plant-based butter in a crock. Yeah, it comes in a little right. Yeah. Little earthenware crock, so that it's cost $16.
Tub of monkeys.
And it's made of a tub of monkeys.
Well, David did marketing.
But they were vegan monkeys.
At a time in his past life, so it's funny.
Yeah. So okay, I'm working on it. And renaming always a fun thing and a mystery to me, because every name was ridiculous in my view.
Yeah. Jingles and slogans. That's my line.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's that.
Okay.
Let's look at New York. New York polling here. That's also fun.
Hello,
Governor.
New York. Oh, yes.
People wrote off Kathy Hochul for dead not too long ago when she screwed up, surge pricing in New York for traffic. And it turns out she came on the right side of that issue. She overcame the Long Island resistance. Kathy Hochul, the incumbent, now is at 50%. Bruce Blakeman, the Long Island pug, who was the Palooka, who was picked to run against her, at 33.
Islanders.
Not sure 15.
Okay.
And here's some interesting numbers.
Yeah.
New York City, Hochul wins 62-20. This is a Maris poll, NPR Maris, so it's a pretty good poll, A- rating. New York City, Hochul wins 62-20. Her idea of surge pricing certainly was popular there, because now the streets are more accessible to people.
Sure.
In the suburbs,
All
Hochul
right.
wins 52-37. So if you win New York City in the suburbs, basically you win the race.
Sounds like it.
Population's greater than the rest of the New York State. So upstate New York, I went to medical school there in the Albany area, Glens Falls and Saratoga Springs and places like that.
Okay.
Schenectady, Republican leaning, not the cities themselves, but the areas around there. So
Sure.
Hochul winning there 42-40 is big, because the only way you can win as a Republican is to rack up points there to try to overcome the New York City advantage from Democrats.
Yeah.
White voters, Hochul 46-41. Black voters, Hochul 79-8. Hispanics for Hochul 56-18. So these are all typical Democrats win kind of numbers.
All right.
And, it reflects the national environment to a certain extent.
Yeah. Sure, I think so. All right. She's the beneficiary of it. That's fine. I do love that surge pricing thing. It was a great view of the process, right? I'm against it. Oh, we think you should not be. And then over the course of about a month, hey, you know what? Okay.
So if you have a 17-point lead in the gubernatorial race in New York, it's not surprising to find out that 12% of registered Republicans say they would back Hochul. Right? And
Yeah,
of those,
I guess.
probably 100% don't remember voting for Donald Trump.
Yes, or claim so. That's all right. Yeah, okay. That's where the vote comes from. Yeah, those numbers have got to be discouraging. How come we're not hearing, or maybe Politico tomorrow will talk to New York Republican operatives about their pessimism for their case. So we have a Texas examination on the New York race.
They're not talking to them because 100% of them don't remember being actual Republican operatives.
That's probably true too. Although, yeah, I mean, I guess really the amount of money that the National Party was probably planning to pour into the gubernatorial race in New York is probably not much, next to zero.
Right. Now,
okay.
Another problem for Republicans, again.
Yes.
Money is fungible in the sense that if you don't spend it someplace, you can spend it somewhere else. But if you suck up the money in one place, you don't have it to spend somewhere else.
Right.
This is Ron Brownstein talking about Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And it's among the largest clump of Democrat target House seats. A Q poll shows Trump approval there at 40%, Democrats +6, on which party voters wish to have control of the House.
Yeah.
But of the 4 target seats the Democrats are looking at to pick up in Pennsylvania, 3 out of 4 of them are in blue-collar and non-college white areas.
Okay.
And they still prefer Republicans for the House by 18, and that's the Dem hill that they have to climb.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it can't be done. Trump is just doing so badly that may happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everyone will need to forget that they are Trump voters.
Yeah, something like that.
Huh. All right. And I mean, you can't just. Trump used to think you could just run around in a lot of those states and just say something about coal, and everybody would vote for you. And then everybody realized, I don't work in the coal industry, and I never have, or I haven't for 20 years. And actually, it sucked when I did. And most of the places are closed now anyway. AI is mining all the coal, and I don't care anymore.
Exactly. All right, and the few minutes I have left,
yes.
I want to highlight a story.
Yeah.
It's about this fellow named Jeffrey Epstein. You may have heard of him.
I don't know. I keep looking for his file, and it's missing.
There are injustices in this world. The greatest injustice is Jeffrey Epstein doing what he did, even after people knew what he was doing. It's horrible.
Yes.
That
I rank that number 1.
Makes this next injustice seem mild in comparison, which it is, but I just have to mention it's an injustice that Julie K. Brown does not have a Pulitzer Prize for the work she did.
Yes. She'll trade it for justice, I'm sure.
Easily, and so would I. How Jeffrey Epstein sought to infiltrate the justice system by Julie K. Brown and Claire Healy in today's Miami Herald. Epstein didn't beat the justice system by accident. For decades, the New York financier curated a network of influential people whom he leveraged to build his fortune and restore his reputation.
Yes.
After he had been accused of preying on underage girls in South Florida in 2008. Not just him. A credible accusation against Donald Trump has gone missing from the DOJ files. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are following up coverage from Roger Sullenberger and NPR, who broke this story.
Yeah.
So that's still out there. But in the meantime, Julie K. Brown just documents the close ties to prosecutors like Alexander Acosta.
Yeah.
In Florida.
I know. Yeah. Certainly the individual criminal acts and the collective size of the criminal enterprise is all. I mean, that's the reason everyone will be craving justice. But the worrisome part of it is how corrosive the addition of that vast amount of money was to this, and it stole your criminal justice system from you, right from under your nose. This is a good point. It needs to be explored.
Right. Oh, speaking of Pennsylvania,
yes,
we had a poll of Pennsylvania of Fetterman.
Okay, I'd be interested to hear that.
Quinnipiac poll. That was interesting.
Yeah.
In 2023,
yes,
among Democrats, John Fetterman had a +68 approval. Now it's -40.
All right.
That's, as Sahil Kapoor notes, that's Kirsten Sinema territory.
Yeah, well,
sunk too deep with his party to win the primary, artificially inflated by Republicans who'd never actually vote for him, trapped in a negative partisanship era that makes an independent bid implausible. His seat is up in 2028. Basically, what Sahil is saying is Fetterman's toast.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it certainly must feel that way. And honestly, had the term gone well medically, he probably shouldn't be running for re-election anyway. Blame it on the medicine and leave.
Right. Anyway, back to Epstein stories.
Ah, yes.
This one in Politico. Tensions simmer over Howard Lutnick, Trump's favorite deal maker.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with him being in like every email in the Epstein file.
Okay.
Trump, of course, is the number one name that's there more often than anybody else. But,
sure.
Lutnick is making a good run for a distant second.
Really? All right.
But that's not why they're mad at him. They're mad at him because he keeps interfering with deals everybody else is trying to do. And he keeps sticking his nose where it doesn't belong, according to this. And so he's on thin ice the way Kristi Noem is and the way Kash Patel is, because Patel keeps using FBI planes so that when people get murdered and the FBI tries to go and investigate, they don't have a plane available to send a crew.
They need to make that part of the TV shows.
You know, Trump is mad about that, not because of the fact, but because it's public and therefore it makes him look bad.
Right.
So Patel has to fire a bunch of people in the FBI who were associated with looking into Trump back in the day. And, Tulsi Gabbard has to show up in Georgia at something that doesn't involve her at all in Fulton County. And so this is what you do to placate Trump when he's mad at you because, like, you're on thin ice.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of speculation about after the midterms, a whole bunch of cabinet secretaries are going to be gone.
Well, it would be a great time
to
make
your exit. They all suck, so it doesn't matter which one.
Yeah. All right. Where were we getting the Lutnick information from?
Politico, let me send you this piece here. Tensions simmer over Howard Lutnick, Trump's favorite deal maker.
Okay. I mean,
it is.
It's funny because I wouldn't have picked him as his favorite deal maker, so I'm starting to wonder, all right, how much of this comes from him?
The kind of last-minute deal-making, it creates headlines Trump loves. Even some of his internal critics concede he brings energy to get a deal.
This sounds like they talk to some Lutnick people. I mean, it's political.
Well, now, of course, he finds himself facing bipartisan calls for his resignation after his name surfaced in files about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
And cabinet secretaries and senior officials in the administration are wary of what they describe as his brash and controlling style. Mm-hmm. The reality is only a small fraction of monies he's promised with deals has any specifics behind it, and it's not really new investment, and he's a pain in the neck, and he keeps interfering with my work, and I don't like him. So people who won't identify who they are.
Mean, okay, that seems, it seems worth probing. I mean, I would have guessed, isn't Jared Kushner his favorite deal maker? Or
it's
Steve, whatever his name is.
Kushner's not getting headlines.
Yeah, okay. But that's definitely his favorite kind of deal maker. Oh, the deals are being made on my behalf and I get the headlines and he doesn't? My favorite.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Exactly. So the point is, whoever leaves the cabinet or the White House superficially will be because, we thought they should because look at this, and this. And that usually has nothing to do with why they're out.
That's usually the case.
Except for the obvious, what doesn't make me look good. That's always on the menu. But usually there's behind-the-scenes stuff he did that annoyed, he got more headlines than Trump, or he took money and put it in his own pocket when it was supposed to go to Trump, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see who's this season's Rex Tillerson.
There was one question in this Politico thing. Well, why are your sons making so much money? Lutnick's.
Yeah.
My sons are the ones that are supposed to make money.
Right. That's true. And I mean, in some cases, they have had the foresight to partner with the Trump boys on things, like the Witkoff kids, and in some cases not. But all right. And we'll see who cycles out of this cabinet, and if anybody wants to win the Rex Tillerson prize and let anybody know what they really thought of the man. But I think, I don't know. I'm sure he's been trying to button that up and make sure that their livelihoods going forward are dependent on staying silent.
Right.
Well,
anyway, I'm out of material, but that's great because we're out of time.
Yeah, it's about that time. So I will throw this out because this is top of mind for a lot of people discussing the morning's news. The Kansas City Star carrying the report of what's gone on in Kansas, the state legislature informing trans residents that their driver's license becomes invalid on Thursday. I guess if it doesn't have the gender assigned at birth on your driver's license, the Kansas state legislature says you don't have an ID anymore. And of course, everybody's on TV telling you all the things that you need IDs for, and so you ought to have to show an ID to vote too. So now, I guess they're very angry about trans people being able to buy beer or cold medicine or get on a plane. But that is not obviously the reason for targeting them. But I guess that's step one. But it doesn't look good, and it doesn't stack up very well when you're trying to say things like, well, I'm not doing any Nazi stuff. Just picking out a suspect class that you don't like and invalidating all of their ID documents in the show me your papers era is not great. But it's on everybody's mind, so I wanted to note that for the record. We kind of have to watch this development and see where it goes.
Some news out the door here. Jake Sherman reports huge news. The Save America Act all but dead in the Senate. Leadership John Thune growing frustrated with Speaker Johnson. He finally quashed the talking filibuster because 4+ Senate Republicans won't vote to kill Democratic amendments, guaranteeing the Save Act has no path.
Okay. And this one, this is the stage 2 part. There's a
Save
Act and Save America Act.
Tom Tillis tells me he'll oppose the motion to proceed, even though he's a co-sponsor.
All right.
Explain it. I can't explain it.
That is interesting, right? Yeah, I won't vote to take this measure up, even though I'm a co-sponsor. Well, being a co-sponsor of it is kind of a one-off.
It's a lame thing, but still, it's pretty fun.
Right. It's not usually the case. I mean, if you co-sponsor, you're usually a cheerleader for the bill at the very least. And I guess not the case.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
The Save Act failing saves America.
Yes, and there were like 2 or 3 versions of it. There was a Save, and I'm not sure whether they're really differentiating in the reporting between the Save Act, and then someone else said, mine is sort of like the Save Act, but I'm going to add the word America to it to make it more amazing. And then there's a Make America, googly-eyed again, or whatever. I don't know. Somebody came up with a different
Stave
one.
Off America Act.
F off.
There's the Shave America Act.
Why didn't you stand for America Act? Yeah, all sorts of things. All right. Well, it's good news, and we can unravel the procedure. Well, we can probably wait until next week, because guess what? This week, they're not doing anything. Makes it easy. All right. Have a good weekend, Greg. All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg will be back on Monday, and got to work on some specific audio for that. But on the way out the door, he granted me another wish, another video. What are we looking at here? Oh, it's Harry Enton. And it's 2 minutes of Harry Enton, although he doesn't look like he's really losing his mind at the beginning of this piece. But let's see. CNN data analyst Harry Enton stunned. He looks stunned, I guess, by what looks like early signs of Texas shifting from red to blue. I mean, that would be fun, and we hope it's true. I think at this stage of the game we say, don't say it out loud, because, watch out, jinx or whatever. But I will say this. It's been a long time coming that people have been predicting, there are demographic shifts afoot in Texas that should eventually, statistically speaking, shift Texas from red to blue, which actually, basically that explains the entire Republican voting but what do we say? Vote security agenda. That's the way they would put it. Our vote suppression agenda is what's happening here, right? We're going to redefine the right to vote, at least in Texas, and probably everywhere that it helps us. But I think they've been motivated this whole time by Texas. The demographics look to be handing Democrats a shot one day soon at changing Texas from red to blue. So what we need to do is make sure that none of the people who will make that happen are allowed to vote so that Texas stays red. On the other hand, I also will point out that it's an annual exercise, or I guess, every couple of years anyway, but it seems like it happens on an annual basis that at least people are talking about it when the next gubernatorial race or next statewide race in another state will find out that maybe they're trending from red to blue. For as long as Democratic operatives have been outlining the case that Texas could shift from red to blue, Republican operatives have made the case that this could be the year that New Jersey Senate races shift from blue to red, because after all, once or twice a Republican has, more than once or twice, but Republicans have occasionally won statewide in gubernatorial races. And so they say this is the year that we're going to end the Democratic clock on New Jersey's Senate seats. And it just never happens. Even if you send those senators to prison, it never happens. It's just a weird thing. So everybody has dreams. Let's see what stuns Harry Enton, and if we can tell the difference between a stunned Harry Enton voice and a regular Harry Enton voice.
Something is going on in Texas. Primaries are March 3rd. That's next week. There is a really interesting phenomenon happening, though, among who is voting. Let's get to CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton. We're not even exactly talking about the candidates here, which is why it might be even more important.
No. Mind blown, to quote the show Blossom, Joey. Whoa! I mean, look at this. Okay, Sheriff.
Now that is a throwback. Okay, to quote the show Blossom, Joey, whoa, okay, that's true. Good point. All right, let's continue on with this.
Texas midterm primary ballots at this point in the cycle cast in Democratic primaries or Republican primaries. In 2022, the last midterm, overwhelmingly, the votes were being cast in Republican primaries, 62%. But look at what's going on now in the 2026 cycle. More votes are being cast on the Democratic side. What a shift from where we were 4 years ago. At this point, more people in Texas picking up the Democratic ballot.
More Democrats are voting in Texas than Republicans. I mean, how unusual is that?
Just how unusual? Well, you see the massive shift from 2022. But look at history. Go all the way back. When was the last time that more people actually picked up a Democratic ballot, cast a ballot in a Democratic primary in Texas in the midterm? You have to go all the way back to 2002. So this could break an over 20-year stretch, my goodness gracious, whereby more people are actually voting on the Democratic side. And I will note, it really hasn't even been close since 2002. Overwhelmingly more people have been voting on the Republican side in Texas. And this year so far, more people are voting on the Democratic side.
This is different, very different, with a capital V in this case. So we still have a few days to go here. What are the chances? What are the prediction markets saying about the chances this will stick?
Okay, so we're only really been talking about the early vote. But if you look at the Kalshi prediction market, what you actually see is chance to have higher Texas primary turnout. Right now, the people putting their money where their mouth is actually slightly predict that there will be more votes cast on the Democratic side than on the Republican side, 60% to 40%, still a close race. But given that Republicans have been so outvoting Democrats in Texas, the idea that more people could actually vote on the Democratic side in Texas, again, as I said at the top, whoa.
So, okay.
He really loves that quote. I will tell you this. It's interesting that they go all the way back to, as he says, when was the last time this happened? 2002. Oh, by the way, I mean, I'm sure that the result at the time was, in the general election, the Republican won, end of story. But I just wanted to point out that they go all the way back to 2002, and I'm going to check this out, but I believe that the show Blossom that he had referenced there had been off the air for 5 or more years by the time that happened in 2002. And I don't know where he thinks is that. I don't know. I don't know how many people that resonated with, but I enjoyed it a great deal. That was funny. I see what they're getting at and why they're getting excited about it. But I think the story may be that as Greg has outlined, there's an exciting and vibrant and not at all upsetting and worrisome Democratic primary, so that on the Democratic side there's more enthusiasm. We have that. There they are. That was the guy in Texas who's enthusiastic about it. People want to participate in that because there's a genuine choice, and the fact that either one of them could be a very good candidate. I mean, sometimes that makes people say, well, to hell with it. I can't make up my mind, so I'm not going to cast a ballot. But in this case, it sounds like people are saying, I want to make my choice known. I have a slight preference or even a strong preference. So I'm going to cast that ballot. Over on the Republican side, nobody likes Cornyn. Everybody hates Paxton, and nobody knows who the other guy is. So the turnout's going to be relatively low, and they might even be saying, I don't even care which one represents us. I'm kind of disgusted by the whole crew of them, but I'll vote for whoever gets that R after their name. But it's not going to be the guy nobody remembers anyway. So it's either going to be Paxton, who I just voted for not that long ago for Attorney General 5 times, and I forgot about it. I'll tell pollsters I didn't. Or it's Cornyn, who I'm used to voting for Senate anyway. So I could see why there might be more enthusiasm for getting out early for Democrats. And Democrats are the ones who can't wait to get to the ballot box because of Trump. And Republicans are the ones who I think are probably saying, I don't know, we won, we got Trump in there, I just want things to stay as they are, and that's why I want all the brown people to leave America after all. And so I think it's explainable, but it was an opportunity for Harry Enton to quote blossom, so it's pretty good. All right. Well, thanks, Greg, for sending that one over. I appreciate it. And did you stick around to yeah, I can see you're still there. You were Did you enjoy the Blossom reference? Yeah. Oh, okay. There's some more. Oh, Phil Graham. Oh, that was it. There we are. The holy shift. The 2002 United States Senate election in Texas was held on November 5th, 2002. Incumbent Republican U.S. Senator Phil Graham decided to retire instead of seeking a 4th term. State Attorney General Republican John Cornyn won that open seat. So I guess you could say the last time more Democrats picked up ballots than Republicans in the primary, John Cornyn won. So I don't know if that can repeat itself. This was the first open seat election since 1984, which tells you, I guess, how boring it is to talk about who's in the Senate from Texas. Let's see. Further results reported. Greg's still sending notes, but let's see. All right, I'm going to scroll down. Oh, now I lose the video. This is no fair. Okay, Democratic Party. All right, what do we have here? Republican John Cornyn, 55.3% of the vote versus Ron Kirk, who had 43.3%. That was the ultimate outcome. Why am I getting a link to the Democratic Party of the United States Wikipedia link? I don't know if that's, you might have to give me some more instruction about what I'm supposed to do with that link. But all right, very interesting and well worth the history lesson. Let me return if I can, because I said it was an important story, and I'm just not up to speed on it, except to note that it's happening and that people are rightfully worried / outraged about what happened in Kansas with the IDs. And I'm just going to read you the Matthew Kelly story from the Kansas City Star about what's going on with the driver's licenses. Kansas informs trans residents their driver's licenses become invalid on Thursday. And hi, everybody. It's Thursday right now. So, I got my note here from Greg about the reason for the link to the Democratic Party Wikipedia entry, just that winning primaries does not equal winning the general election. Yes, right. And if you want to know why, you can read all about the Democratic Party of the United States over at Wikipedia. True. Okay, good point. Thank you. All right, here's what's the balance of the Kansas City Star article. Transgender Kansans are being informed on the eve of a new state law going into effect that their driver's licenses will be considered invalid as of Thursday. As I recall, by the way, is this the story in which the legislature passed the bill? The governor, Democratic governor of Kansas, vetoed the bill, and the legislature overrode the veto. So that's something. I think that was being brought up because everybody was like, Kansas Republicans, can't stand them. Why didn't Democrats fight? And everybody saying, well, they did. They lost the fight. It's an overwhelming majority, I guess, in the Kansas state legislature. But the governor did, in fact, veto the bill, used the power that she had to try and stand in the way. But I guess why, I don't know. Everybody's angry and alarmed and upset and want to know why everything wasn't set on fire over this. And I don't know if I know, other than the fact that it's overwhelmingly Republican legislature there, and legally speaking, procedurally speaking, what could be done had been done. Whether the messaging carried the charge forward sufficiently or not, obviously not. We're here. So again, transgender Kansas now finding out, hey, your ID is invalid as of today. Please note that the legislature did not include a grace period for updating credentials. That means that once the law is officially enacted, your current credentials will be invalid immediately. That doesn't sound good at all, but of course the cruelty is the point. And you may be subject to additional penalties if you are operating a vehicle without a valid credential, read letters mailed by the Kansas Department of Revenue's Vehicles Division dated Monday. So, I mean, did it even arrive by yesterday to let people know it was dated Monday? Did you get to the mailbox and find it on Wednesday and you're being told your license is invalid as of Thursday? So what do you do if your license is invalid? You go to the DMV to get a new valid one under the new law, except if you drive there and they stop you, you don't have a valid license. So it's a big day for Uber, I guess, or taking the bus. Essentially, though, it's, they've laid a trap for people they don't like. And that's why everybody's so mad about it, and justifiably so. Some transgender Kansans interviewed by the Star said they had received the letters. Others who have changed the gender markers on their driver's licenses, state IDs, and birth certificates said they had not yet received notification from KDOR, not the radio station, but the Kansas Department of Revenue, as of Wednesday evening. Okay. Well, here's a name for you. I guess if you're changing your gender, you might as well go back and you change your name to something appropriate as well. Or you get very creative with your name as Iridescent Riffle. That a transgender woman with a Kansas driver's license who lives in Grandview and commutes to work in Lawrence, and so therefore needs the car, said she hadn't received the letter yet. Iridescent. Well, why not? And I don't know if I've pronounced the last name right, but Riffel, Riffle. I mean, it could be rifle for all I know. And but that would really be something. Iridescent rifle. Now we have a product to move. If we should need to raise funds for you, if you don't have an objection to marketing a rifle under your name, which you very well may. Anyway, here's the quote from her though. I don't want to get a misdemeanor just trying to go to work. Right. By the way, she had changed the letter on her license, the one letter designation of gender from M to F in 2023, shortly before Attorney General Chris Kobach, remember him, legal intervention forced KDOR, the Department of Revenue, to stop accommodating such requests for more than 2 years. Snuck in under the wire. Good work. You had an eye on what was happening. I'm salaried. I'm not working hourly. And not everyone has that same privilege as me, said, I'm going to stick with Riffle on this, although I like Rifle as a name, who got approval from her boss to work remotely until she figures out how to drive legally in Kansas, or get a beer, as all the Republicans are so fond of pointing out you can do with an ID. Pursuant to the new law, you can't drown your sorrows in beer either, right? That's pursuant to the new law, if the gender/sex indication, there we are, on the face of your current credential does not match your sex assigned at birth, you are directed to surrender your current credential. Not only is it invalid, but you have to surrender it even. Wow. To the Kansas Division of Vehicles, KDOV, as opposed to KDOR, reads this letter, which the Star reviewed multiple copies of. I guess it said the same thing in all of them, though. Upon surrendering the credential, you will be issued a new credential reflecting the gender identification consistent with statutory requirements. It continues. If you have any questions regarding procedures for obtaining a legally compliant credential, please contact KDOV or visit your local driver's licensing office. But walk, I guess, is the idea. And don't tell me that they... But I don't doubt that they might, in fact, put state police in the parking lots of these places. And if someone comes in and surrenders their license and gets a new one, and somebody from the counter points, this is one who just changed that. If they came here in a car, arrest them for driving without a license, even though you didn't witness them doing it. Okay. SB 244, which Republican supermajorities in the Kansas legislature voted last week to enact over Governor Laura Kelly's veto, will go into effect on Thursday upon the publication of the Kansas Register. That, I assume, like the Federal Register, is the official record of all that stuff that passed in the legislature and will now become law, and they published the text of it. It's an unusual thing. In most cases, no matter what the subject of the law, it's still a relatively rare thing to say effective immediately, especially if it's obvious that there's going to be chaos from immediate effect from immediately making the law effective. They ordinarily will say, pick a date that makes some sense, whether it's the end of the fiscal year, the beginning of the calendar year, beginning of the next month, something. But very rarely is it beginning immediately, when it also means that thousands of people across the state are going to be thrown into disarray and confusion. Unless they hate those people, in which case they go ahead with it because it's that much funnier to them. The legislation provides no funding to help people who need to replace their licenses. Kansas driver's licenses typically cost around $30, so there's that too. In addition to invalidating transgender residents' state identification documents, the new law will require people in government-owned buildings to use restrooms and other multi-occupancy private spaces in accordance with their sex assigned at birth. Which I get, that's a popular culture war thing to do, although, I guess they didn't really think this through all the way, right? This is interesting. So you take the bus to work or wherever, and you go into a government building, and it's mostly an empty threat because they're not going to man the bathrooms there, or staff the bathrooms with any gender people, checking IDs. And even if unless they're doing that and they say, I'm checking your ID before you go in the bathroom, and we're checking everyone's ID. We ID everyone under 30, right? They compare everything to getting a beer. ID everybody at the door. But of course, if somebody you suspect is using the quote unquote wrong bathroom, presents you an ID, you can also arrest them for carrying an invalid ID at the same time. So it's a double bonus for you. As opposed to, now on the other hand, they might say, I think you're using the wrong bathroom. Can you prove to me what your gender is? I would, but it's a state crime to present you with these credentials that have just been invalidated by act of the legislature. So I'm not going to show you my papers. I don't know how else to prove my gender to you, but all right. I think they just threw that in there because that's a popular culture war thing to do. And somebody somewhere is going to say, I saw somebody who's been lifting weights and they're in the wrong bathroom, and I'm angry about that. That's basically how that usually comes down. Anyway, the persecution obviously is the point, and that's the quote. The persecution is the point, says Representative Abby Boatman. Abby? Is it ABI? So I said it like it's Israeli, but maybe it isn't. But Abby, is that just a different spelling of Abby? ABI? Abby Boatman, a Wichita Democrat and the only transgender member of the legislature who received the KDOR notice on Wednesday. So that the delivery has been good. Dated Monday, and she got it Wednesday. Representatives from KDOR and the governor's office did not immediately respond to inquiries about whether license holders have received or will receive any other form of outreach about driver's licenses and birth certificates being invalidated. But by the way, who is going to be targeted with the bathroom thing is Abby Boatman. She's the only transgender member of the state legislature. The state legislature works in government buildings. There's going to be a Nancy Mace of the Kansas state legislature who's going to watch and follow Abby Boatman around all day to see where she goes to the bathroom, which, honestly, you should be arrested for all on its own. Not Abby, the person following around looking to see, filming her going into the bathroom or something. That should be illegal. That's the one you want to arrest. That's the creep. Anyway, it's all happening very quickly. My heart is broken for anyone who this is directly impacting, said Jay Moyer, an LGBTQ plus activist who serves as a member of the Johnson County Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition DEI, but it's got a C at the end, so it's okay. It won't be found by the dodgy AI systems. This bill that the Republicans forced through the legislature so quickly is doing nothing but causing a problem that doesn't exist. It's clearly something they've wanted to do for a long time, and it's at the expense of members of marginalized communities, Moyer said. Last month, a spokesperson for the Kansas Department of Revenue, KDOR, we're going to the full name now, told the Star that the agency had processed 159 gender changes on IDs since a district court injunction was lifted in October. Officials say they expect around 1,800 people to have their identity documents revoked, which, by the way, really is a good argument for not doing this stupid thing because it's just not a widespread problem. We got to have whole legislation because 159 people changed their IDs. Wow. Who cares? Oh, well, 1,800 people could. I know. It's a big state. Don't worry about it. All right. Well, bathroom policing in practice is the title of the next section. We'll find out whether that means here's what it would mean in practice if you actually did it, or warning, there's already bathroom policing in practice. It could be either one. Jessie Lawson, a transgender woman who lives in Wichita and received notification of her driver's license being revoked on Wednesday. It looks like a lot of those deliveries were made. Said she's deeply worried about the restroom component to the new law, a provision that received no public hearing. And by the way, was overwhelmingly unpopular and lost statewide in North Carolina. It was the first state, I think, to have this battle like 10 years ago. This should be old news and over and done with by now. But they're turning back the clock everywhere. Anyone found to have improperly used a restroom or other private space, what does that mean, in a government building would face a written warning for a first violation. A second violation would carry a $1,000 fine, and each subsequent violation would be a misdemeanor offense punishable by another fine and up to 6 months in jail, with a bathroom, I guess, in it that you would be allowed to use. Anyone who believes someone used the wrong restroom in their presence could file a complaint seeking $1,000. So that's really interesting. You get the fine. That, of course, I'm sure by design, just to make things worse. It doesn't make any legal sense whatsoever, but it's going to encourage people to, how do you prove that this happened? Videotape. What does this mean? Videotaping people in bathrooms in government buildings for a bonus. Again, that's the creepy party. You don't want those guys involved in anything. They're encouraging people to carry video cameras into the bathrooms and try to catch. And, you know, oh, by the way, who gets the $1,000 if you try to film someone you think is using the wrong bathroom, but it turns out they're using the right bathroom and you've just violated their privacy horrifically? Nobody gets $1,000. You should get $1 billion. If you get filmed using the bathroom and it's all BS to start with, and it's just somebody creeping on you hoping to get $1,000 for their weird fetish, you should get $1 billion from them. But of course, they don't have $1 billion to give you. So anyway, I don't know what this is. This is the Republican dream come true. They never imagine any of the things that could go wrong with this until, by the way, it'll happen to one of their daughters or granddaughters, and then it'll be a huge outrage. And it'll all have been Democrats' fault. Democrats are the ones doing this, you know. They're the number one filmers in bathrooms, despite the fact that all the $1,000 payments, I'm sure, in the future have been made by, between the passage of this bill and now, have gone to Republicans. And they've all gone to James O'Keefe and, what's his name, Nick Shirley, who's on to the next hoax already, by the way. Maybe we'll find a way to shoehorn that in at some point. This whole deputization thing, it turns Kansas residents into Dog the Bounty Hunter, Lawson said. I might have gone with James O'Keefe on that. So now, although I guess Dog the Bounty Hunter sounds even dumber, which is hard to do. So now I have to worry about people watching me walk into the ladies' room and then, they're going to call in a $1,000 bounty on me. That is just so wrong on so many levels. That's right. I have several trans male friends, she said. You cannot tell by looking at them. They've got, this is an interesting way of describing it. They've got like Moses level beards going on. Moses level. All right. I'll go along with that. And this law is putting them in the ladies' room. It's completely insane. Republicans, and that won't cause more chaos. There's guys with huge beards coming into the laser room. Somebody help me. I don't know. You told me I had to. There's another one of these. You voted for this. No, I didn't vote for this. Yeah, you did. This is where I have to go. Sorry. Call your legislature if you don't like people with Moses-level beards going into the ladies' room with you. It's the law. Well, that'll be interesting, too, because they'll try to film them, and then they'll say, you don't even understand the law. You got it backwards here. Now you got to give me money for filming me. Anyway, Republicans framed the bathroom and driver's license bill as an addendum clarifying the intent. Uh-oh. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here, too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day, or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of, and by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I realized, I think I knew going into it, trying to fit in one more paragraph before the break wasn't going to work, and I just ran out of time, and all I could tell you was, I'm out of time. I couldn't even say the words, I'm out of time. Where I was in this reading, we had just read about the claim that this one particular trans woman who has several trans male friends who have Moses-level beards, apparently. And the law says now the heavily bearded people have got to go into the ladies' room, and it's going to cause problems. I think we all know it, and I think that's probably something that they may even have anticipated in the Kansas State Legislature, but they just wanted to cause problems and embarrassment for transgender people of all kinds, and make people nervous and upset and make them the center of attention when they really don't want to be, and cause confusion and have people who they think are their allies in anti-trans agendas also up in arms and causing problems for people who, it's just putting your nose in people's business and filming it in places that don't belong. And they'll be saying they're doing it in pursuit of the law, and they'll come up with nothing and fix no problems, but just anger, embarrass, mortify others instead, and possibly, trigger some real problems and maybe violence as well. Not only will people be saying, I'm going to film this bearded individual going into the ladies' room, but then they'll call some Proud Boy meatheads around and say, I want you to beat up this person for obeying the law, by the way, but doing so in a way that made me uncomfortable. That is to say, I don't like them and I'm always going to be uncomfortable. Is there a law that says you can beat them up? There isn't. There's a law that says you're not supposed to. We'll see whether that one gets enforced. Lawson, there's more, said Republican lawmakers and officials who rushed the anti-trans bill through without a public discussion need to confront the realities of what its implementation means. We've just heard. This is it. I would love to sit down with Kobach and say, this is the person you're damaging, Lawson said. I just want to be peaceful. I want to be happy. I want to pursue life without having to look over my effing shoulder. There's just F and a bunch of dash here. So, F and an M dash. So, I don't know. Anyway, that's a good point. I don't think sitting across from Chris Kobach and saying this is the person you're damaging is going to work with Kobach, though it would be an opportunity to say, what exactly do you think is going to happen when a person with a giant beard goes into the ladies' room? How is this going to play out? vis-a-vis your interpretation of how the law actually works. You want them to go in there. And I guess what you really need to do, this is the interesting part, is I want you to sit down with Chris Kobach and the woman who's scared out of her mind because a bearded person is following her into the bathroom and who was forced to try to enforce the law herself by trying to take a picture of somebody that might look like they could beat the crap out of her and enforce the law herself. But I might get $1,000 at some point eventually if I do this. Is it really worth it? But really, sit down with Chris Kobach and a woman who is just, she doesn't even pursue the bounty. I was just scared out of my mind, and then I made a complaint, and it turns out that that's what the law says this person has to do. You did this to me. You and the Kansas legislature told this person who just wanted to go to the bathroom in a restroom where they would cause no problems. You forced them to follow me into the bathroom, and I got scared out of my mind because of you and your stupid law. That's the meeting that should be taking place here. And I'm pretty sure that the LGBTQ plus community will figure that out and knows it now. And, I don't know whether they wish they had that one back or not, but eventually it won't matter because Chris Kobach will refuse that meeting. All right. A shift away from that, although I really wanted to put that on the agenda because there's a lot of discussion about it, and you can see why. It's very disturbing. What have I got here that I need to, another situation I need to update you on. There's been another attack on a boat in the Caribbean. Only in a surprise twist, it is an American boat full of Americans, Cuban Americans, attacked by Cuba. And I guess we're supposed to run around saying that this one is illegal and problematic and confusing, and somebody needs to do something about the crazies who are just opening fire with no warning on speedboats in the Caribbean if it's not us. Although it is us because we were on the boats. You see what's going on here? I'm going to turn to the Hill for a second for this one because they usually will give us a good... a concise accounting of what's going on, even if we have to dissect it after the fact or even in the middle of the reading. Ryan Mancini reports here, Cuba says 4 shot dead on U.S. registered speedboat. What's going on? Cuba's Interior Ministry on Wednesday said 4 people aboard a U.S. speedboat were killed following a confrontation with Cuban border security officers amid worsening conditions on the island nation and rising tensions with the U.S. 5 Cuban border guards intercepted the violating, and that's enclosed in scare quotes, violating speedboat about 1 nautical mile northeast of Cayo Falcones in Villa Clara province, the ministry said in a statement shared on a social platform. Well, you know it as Twitter, of course. And I don't know how familiar you are with Cuban geography. I'm not, but Armando knows where we're talking about. I'm pretty sure. But you can look it up and see where are they, regardless of really where on the island is. The fact that you're 1 nautical mile northeast of that coast is, putting you in some danger, I think. When a surface unit of the border guard troops of the Ministry of the Interior, carrying 5 service members, approached the vessel for identification, the crew of the violating speedboat, allegedly, opened fire on the Cuban personnel, resulting in the injury of the commander of the Cuban vessel, the statement reads. Along with the 4 people killed on the speedboat, 6 were injured and received medical assistance. So there were, I guess, at least 10 on board the speedboat. In the face of current challenges, Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters based on the principle that national defense is a fundamental pillar of the Cuban state in safeguarding its sovereignty and ensuring stability in the region. Well, okay. The ministry's statement concludes they've got their right to claim sovereignty. Obviously, I don't know how much stability they're contributing in the region, but whatever. The Cuban, I guess the question is turnabout fair play? Not for Americans, it isn't. Anyway, the Cuban government is investigating the incident, we'll see where that goes. Vice President Vance told reporters Wednesday he was briefed by Secretary of State Rubio on the incident. Certainly a situation that we're monitoring. Do we care what J.D. Vance has to say? Not really. The Hill has also reached out to the State Department and White House for comment. News Nation's Libby Dean, I don't know who News Nation is, also reported that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was briefed by the U.S. Coast Guard on the incident. The Hill has also reached out to the Florida Governor's office for comment. The incident comes amid escalating tensions between the U.S. and Cuba as the Trump administration seeks to put pressure on its government after the U.S. capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, whose government procured oil for Cuba to use. To this end, the Trump administration is restricting trade with Cuba, citing its close ties to Iran, Russia, and China. The White House has also threatened to punish any country that directly or indirectly provides oil toward Cuba. Toward Cuba? Really? President Trump said last week that the U.S. and Cuba were in talks amid the oil blockade. Is this Trump? Yes. I'm very interested in the people that are here that we were treated so badly by Castro and the Cuban authorities. They've been treated horribly, Trump told reporters last week. So we'll see how it all turns out. But Cuba and us, we're talking. In the meantime, there's an embargo. There's no oil. There's no money. There's no anything. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has pushed back against the administration's blockade, which has further crippled the country's healthcare system and led to the suspension of airline service to Cuba. Under a mendacious and argument-free pretext peddled by those who engage in politics and enrich themselves at the expense of our people's suffering, President Trump seeks to strangle the Cuban economy by imposing tariffs on countries that, in the exercise of their sovereignty, trade oil with Cuba. Diaz-Canel wrote on Twitter last month they should ban him from Twitter. I don't know. All right, well, you're going to get what you get from the Cuban government. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, remember him, also wrote on Wednesday on Twitter that he has directed the state's Office of Statewide Prosecution, is that what they call it, to work with our federal, state, and law enforcement partners to open an investigation into the incident. Okay, sure. Anyway, that happened. And you got to monitor that situation and see whether that adds to any escalation of tensions. It's just a little odd. Now, the New York Times reporting on the situation dives a little deeper into what was that effing boat anyway? What was it doing there? What was going on? Florida boat in gunfight had Cuban nationals intent on infiltration, Cuba says. 4 people killed, 6 others wounded. You know the basics of the situation. This is one of their ongoing coverage sections with lots and lots of updates. I guess the top news, the latest, pinned at the top, 10 people traveling on a Florida-based speedboat who engaged in a deadly gun battle with Cuban border troops were armed Cuban nationals living in the United States. Cuban state media reported on Wednesday. Of course, that's a favorite obsession of the Cuban government, and with not without reason. Cuban Americans have fantasized about a private military attack on Cuba since forever, since Castro's revolution, and we've actually tried it more than once, I think. So, it's not completely without basis. I don't know whether that's what they were doing here and now, but you could see that maybe the Trump administration might be the one to try to revive this or give license to this sort of nonsense. But okay. The report, citing a statement from the Ministry of the Interior, said that preliminary declarations, whatever that means, by men detained from the boat had indicated that they were intent on an infiltration with terrorist ends. So it's a little bit like the movie Spies Like Us, where they capture the Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase, and they're threatening them with torture. And so they say, we were sent to assassinate your premier. Okay, sure. But maybe. The Cuban government did not provide any more details about suspected terrorism links, but of course, any infiltration of the island would be, I'm sure they would say, that's terrorism. Whether it was military in nature or not. But it said the men had been carrying weapons, Molotov cocktails, bulletproof jackets, and camouflage gear. The government said in an earlier statement that its border troops had engaged in a gunfight after the speedboat entered its territorial waters on Wednesday, killing 4 people and wounding 6 others. The authorities arrested one man who admitted to flying into the island nation to meet the boat. The second government statement said the majority of the men on the boat have a criminal or violent history, it added, which might also be true or might just be mirroring American government rhetoric about the people it targets. The government also began releasing the names of some of the dead and injured. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was in St. Kitts and Nevis on Wednesday on a diplomatic trip, must be nice, to meet with officials from Caribbean nations, told reporters earlier that the United States was investigating the shooting, but was so far relying on the Cuban government for information. Really. As we gather more information, we'll be prepared to respond accordingly, he added. Asked whether the episode might have involved U.S. government personnel or a U.S. government operation, Mr. Rubio said no. That's it. Just no. What did he say? He said no, but he might mean yeah. I really don't know. We'll find out which one is which, or whether he's a liar or not. Although there's really no reason at this point to think that it was a government operation. There are plenty of private Cuban American militants who love the idea and have been waiting forever, or not waiting, I guess, actually trying to pull it off. The vessel had approached within 1 nautical mile northeast of El Pino. Is it El Pino or El Pino? It's just no tilde here. So I think the New York Times has the ability to put it there. So we're going to say El Pino Channel, north of Corralillo, a town in the central Cuban province of Villa Clara, according to the earlier statements from Cuba's Ministry of the Interior. 5 Cuban border guard troops on a government boat approached the speedboat seeking identification, but they all had to surrender it because they're all Kansan trans militants. How about that? Had that happened? No. Then, of course, the people aboard the boat, realizing that they had no valid identification because it had been revoked by the Kansas state legislature the day before, opened fire on Cuban personnel, wounding a Cuban commander, according to the ministry's statement and Cuban state media. As a result of the confrontation, at the time of this report, 4 foreign attackers were killed and 6 were wounded, the government said. The wounded were evacuated and received medical attention, the Cuban government said. And Trump said, I'm sending a beautiful hospital ship to Cuba to take care of the people who aren't getting medical attention there. Here's what else to know. The Florida-registered boat appears to be a 24-foot Proline motorboat built in 1981. This may be more than you need to know, but thank you, New York Times. According to Florida state records, that is what corresponds to the registration number provided by the Cuban authorities. Typically, such a 24-foot boat has a capacity of for 8 to 10 people, so it is possible they had 10 on board. Cuban officials suggested 10 were on board. The one attacked on Wednesday. More American response? Let's see. Carlos Gimenez, it's a G, Gimenez, but does he say Jimenez? Republican of Florida, called for an immediate investigation into what he called a massacre. Okay, so sure, but what are you doing there? How about an investigation of that? The tensions with the U.S., of course, surrounding the continuing Cuban embargo and the oil embargo as well. Trump's campaign is the next section here. Shooting comes amid an aggressive campaign by the Trump administration against speedboats in the region that the White House has claimed are trafficking drugs to the United States. It has not provided evidence to support those claims. The U.S. military has conducted 44 known strikes, killing at least 150 people in attacks that legal experts say violate international law. And a historical parallel, the shooting took place a day after the 30th anniversary of when the Cuban military killed 4 people by shooting down 2 planes from a Florida humanitarian organization, Brothers to the Rescue, that was distributing flyers in Cuba because of all the humanitarian work that flyering can do. I don't know. But Brothers to the Rescue I'm familiar with. And I guess the most benign of their operations is flying small private spotter planes over the Florida Straits looking for Cuban refugees who have taken flight from Cuba on makeshift rafts to try to make their way over to Florida, and alerting the Coast Guard to their presence so that they are picked up and aren't lost at sea. That's the best thing that they do. Anyway, Brothers to the Rescue, I guess, in that pace, where are we here? The shooting took place on the 30th anniversary of the shoot down of 2 of their planes. Those people are acting in that fashion, going there to Cuba to pick up people, are risking their lives, said Jose Basulto, the leader of Brothers to the Rescue, who was on a 3rd plane that somehow managed to escape Cuban gunfire that day. So that's interesting context. There's ongoing coverage here, but I think we can kind of leave it at that. But at least it includes a map. So the area that they're talking about here, what was it, El Pino, and an island off of the coast. Basically, if you can visualize the map of Cuba relative to Florida, if you left the southern tip of Florida and went straight down, straight south, due south, you'd have to go southwest to get to Havana. You'd have to go southeast to get down to the Guantanamo end. But if you went straight down, like this is how much gas the boat has, go straight, you'd hit Santa Clara province and this island pretty directly. If you just took off from Miami and went boom straight down, that's where you go. So not quite the middle of the island per se, but a little bit to the west and north. It is the direction you have to. If you put a pin in the middle of the island, it's sort of diagonal that way. Okay, so now we have some context for that, and another thing to keep an eye on: war with Iran, war with Cuba, war with both of them because they're aligned with one another. We'll see where this one comes out. Ha ha. Okay. I mentioned earlier in the show, right up at the top of things, that in the view of some watching the State of the Union, there was some hint that reconciliation was on the table. Let me read you a little bit about that, and then maybe we can sneak in one more story. We'll make a subjective choice about the most important of the bunch. Trump's State of the Union piles pressure on Johnson for second reconciliation push, reports Sudiksha Kochi and Mike Lillis for The Hill. President Trump used much of his State of the Union address Tuesday night to promote Gops legislation, which is likely to hit a wall with Democrats, turning up the heat on Speaker Mike Johnson to pursue a complicated avenue to pass it with only Republican votes. Johnson may have only a narrow window to push much of Trump's legislative agenda over the finish line, like just time-wise, as the president's party historically suffers losses in midterm elections, and the administration appears eager to sharpen its economic policy as the election cycle ramps up, a dynamic that could complicate matters for Johnson as he steers a razor-thin majority through resistance from both Gop hardliners and moderates. Not to mention, of course, Democrats. Though Trump did not mention a second reconciliation package explicitly in Tuesday's speech, they're going to sane wash him into it. He repeatedly highlighted the tax cuts enacted in his Two Big Beautiful Bidets Act. Shortly before the speech, Trump told news anchors that he wants new personal and corporate tax cuts this year and wants to use reconciliation to pass them, according to CNBC News. I don't know whether that means he said the word reconciliation to CNBC or whether CNBC sane-washed his wish for more tax cuts, which ordinarily it would be unlikely to see anybody deliver in this political atmosphere and with this razor-thin margin. So they said you must have meant reconciliation, though it's not at all clear that they could make that work or at all clear that Trump knows what that is and made a question for it. But I guess somebody in the administration knows and said it, because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also suggested to NBC News on Tuesday that Republicans could use the budget reconciliation process to advance a new retirement proposal that Trump unveiled during his speech. The new proposal would offer Americans who do not have a retirement savings plan through their employer, such as a 401k, access to the same plan offered to federal workers. Trump said he would match the contribution with up to $1,000 a year, but he also said he was going to give you $2,000 for prescription drugs and free IVF and God knows what else, so you can take that to the fake bank. We can do it through reconciliation, Bessent said. This is the president coming back for working Americans, those who have been left behind. By who? By him. What can you do? But they were left behind before, by Biden. Yeah, he did it. Reconciliation, of course, is a special process that allows a party with unified control of Washington to bypass the Senate filibuster, lending them a major opportunity to move legislation that couldn't pass otherwise. It was this process that Republicans used to enact Trump's Two Big Beautiful Bidets Act last year. That is an odd description. I mean, that's the nature of how it was last used. It's not a tool that's designed to allow a party with unified control of Washington to bypass the Senate filibuster. It's a tool it definitely is designed to get around the filibuster, true, but it wasn't necessarily designed to be passed by one party. It was, and by the way, supporters of the filibuster will tell you that the filibuster is a tool for forcing bipartisan compromise. Taking it off the table isn't supposed to, say, well, now we don't care about compromise. It's supposed to allow an agenda of any kind, to get through Congress in a timely fashion, if and only if it improves the long-term outlook of the federal deficit. If there's deficit cutting and debt cutting in it, it's supposed to be able to get past the filibuster. That was the original design of it. It didn't really have anything to do with which party controlled, but, that's the way it's come to be used. Advancing another reconciliation package would be a heavy lift for Johnson, though, who struggled to push Trump's first-year agenda across the finish line and would likely face even stronger headwinds in an election year. Even House Republicans concede the path forward would be fraught with challenges. Just judging from the amount of effort it took to get the last one passed, I wouldn't bet the farm on another one happening. There seems to be a lot of outspoken opponents to doing one. Good reasons to pursue one, but I think it's very difficult to back. Representative Dan Newhouse, a Republican of Washington, said on Wednesday, Johnson's currently operating with a 218-214 majority, meaning he can only afford one Republican defection and still pass party line legislation. And Thomas Massey, a conservative fiscal hawk, maybe, who voted against the Two Big Beautiful Bidets Act, is already considering a likely no vote on any new reconciliation package. In January, the Republican Study Committee unveiled a framework for a second reconciliation package. It is possible. I know, by the way, a lot of people are going to be confused by this because they've been the victim of inaccurate reporting all along that told people that reconciliation was something that could be done once a year. And that's not actually true, and we've spent time explaining the nuance of it so that you won't be surprised that it can, in fact, happen twice in the same year. But everyone else will wonder. Oh, actually, no one will wonder because they're just ignoring the fact that the Hill told everybody that for years. Anyway, in January, they put out a framework for a second reconciliation package that includes housing reforms aimed at boosting access to home ownership, health reforms that Trump has backed, such as having Obamacare subsidies flow to individuals rather than insurance companies, and then thereafter be handed over to insurance companies, and cuts to regulations governing energy production. But even Johnson's allies concede it would be a heavy lift. Obviously, the math governs what happens around here, said Representative Dusty Johnson, Republican of South Dakota. It does in any deliberative body. So the question will be, can you secure 218 votes and 51 votes to bend the arc of healthcare toward affordability and quality? Not that way you can't. Anyway, some other Republicans are named here. Brian Fitzpatrick, who voted against the first reconciliation bill, said he's always suspect of reconciliation bills because he prefers two-party solutions. I voted against multiple reconciliation bills, both Democrat and Republican. He said, I'm not a fan of single-party bills. Okay, Don Bacon's name comes up here. Jeff Hurd's name comes up here. Kevin Kiley, Massey, and, of course, Fitzpatrick and Newhouse all voted in favor of a resolution to repeal Trump's tariffs on Canada in early February. So they have shown a willingness to buck the system before, and in an atmosphere where you can only afford to lose one vote, that could be extraordinarily dangerous. So anyway, it's on the radar now, even though it's only been put on the radar by sane washing after the fact. That leaves us with very little time, in fact none, to dive into the other story, but I want to alert you to it because we're going to have to look into it and find out what it means. I don't know the background of what the FBI is claiming here, but I want you to know that the FBI, according to the New York Times, has executed another very weird raid. And they did this while the director of the FBI was chugging booze somewhere. FBI raids Los Angeles schools chief's home and office. The investigation appears to be related to a $6 million contract that the district had with a tech startup whose staff had ties to the superintendent, Alberto Caravallo. So he's the person in charge and the person in question, and they've raided his office and his home. And the New York Times is reporting it. We're going to have to unravel that one tomorrow. Is it targeting him because he pushed back hard on ICE raids in Los Angeles schools during their most recent appearance and, for lack of a better word, crackdown in LA? Maybe yes, maybe no, but also maybe yes. I think so. What's the excuse? We'll try and unravel that perhaps tomorrow. Just wanted you to know it was happening.
From networksradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
I'll bet Justice Putnam knows it's happening. Let's see what's on the list today for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Some people think a woo-woo Surgeon General should be vaccinated if they are going to be blasted out of their brains on shrooms. That's a hell of a story. We didn't even get to that. But thankfully, Justice has it covered, and we'll see you tomorrow.